It's a total mess.
AMORIM is single-handedly trying to push this identity on Man United that they've not had for probably a decade.
I will take the pain now until I get what I want. Ruben, stay strong, do not give in to them.
I didn't think he was overly harsh, Gary Neville. I was looking at it thinking, crumbs, he's right.
Then you're getting asked to play out of position in a team that's not doing well. It can be really tough. The 18s have won literally everything they were involved in last season. Me, the first time I got called to sit on the bench, I couldn't care less if it was 12-0.
I think I said on my review after last night, God help us at Goodison.
Sorry to say this, but why has AMORIM not had a similar sort of effect going into United?
Rasmus Højlund and Joshua Zirkzee have scored 5 goals between 45 Premier League appearances between them. And Garnacho, for me, really has to step up to the plate in this game.
He ain't that guy yet.
Yeah.
It's that simple. He's not good enough to be relied upon at that level. Hello and welcome to Inside Devils talkSPORT's Man United show, bringing you the latest news and reaction coming out of Old Trafford. And after our third defeat to Tottenham this season alone, we have a mountain of topics to discuss. Joining me to try and answer what on earth is going on is the Guardian's Jamie Jackson and talkSPORT's Angelina Kelly. Good to see you guys. I mean, it's a total mess. A James Maddison tap-in was enough to get Spurs their third win over Manchester United this season in all comps. And what's going on? What's going on?
It was bad, wasn't it? It was bad. It was one of those where I feel like a draw would have... I mean, Spurs won it and that's that, but I feel like a draw could have been fair. I feel like we did have some chances, but I think when you're looking at it and Joshua Zirkzee I think like De Ligt had some good moments, but Joshua Zirkzee's your best player. It wasn't great at all. Very, very sad viewing, very boring game, just waiting for something to happen. And you find, AMORIM's using this excuse of, oh no, we were chasing a goal, so that's why I didn't make any subs. It's like, why is he lying to us? Like, he always makes subs, like, normally between either at half-time or by the 60th minute. And I just got a bit frustrated that you bring a player on with 3 minutes of injury time or something, don't even get a touch of the ball. Don't really think that was the best decision from him. But yeah, you're just becoming numb to it. Same old, isn't it?
Yeah, it is the same old. It continues. Jamie, welcome to the show for your debut in here.
Person.
In person, which is great to have you, mate. AMORIM said after the game that his job is so hard. How much of the issues of what's going on now are in his court versus the wider context and the mess that is Man United?
Yeah, I mean, this is the question. He's responsible for what goes on in the field. He cannot have taken this job. He didn't think he could do a lot better than this. Listen, you zoom out and then you look at the club and the whole INEOS situation. Actually, mess is the word. I think it's a polite word, really. It's a bit of a crisis, really, if you actually think about all the 100%. Stuff that's going on. I'm a little bit surprised in Ruben Amorim because he comes across, and I think he's a very intelligent, articulate man. And why I mention that is I'm sure that must feed into how he speaks to players, how he looks at football and himself. So what I'm surprised about is this thing about this system. On the one hand, a few clubs play 3-4-3. Crystal Palace came and did a number on United, played a very nice 3-4-3. So I'm thinking, I don't care which Joe Bloggs players you've got, they should be able to adapt to it. But something's not working, is it? Whether it's himself giving off the sort of vibe that I don't think you lot are quite good enough or adapted to this, so this is like getting in their heads. He's got to do better. Not because he's a miracle worker. I'm not asking him to make United like challengers or even top six, however you want to describe that. Just slightly better than what they are, because there's nothing.
There's been no improvement,
There's nothing really. We've gone backwards. I think I've read a stat, I've forgotten this, that United were maybe 3 or 4 points off the top 4 when Ten Hag got offed. I mean, everyone would kill for that associated with the club now. Then if you zoom out, I keep on thinking with Sir Jim Ratcliffe and this INEOS thing that, right, he messed up over Ten Hag, keeping over the summer. The Dan Ashworth thing was a farce, beyond farce. Let's wait however many months to get him in the club, pay a few million, and then he goes after 5 months. I mean, it's basically because he wanted Thomas Frank, as I understand it, and there was an agreement of the Ten Hag keeping the job. Ratcliffe couldn't work with him. So I'm looking at that, and then all the redundancies, all the pain, all that horrible for people's, livelihoods, families. And I'm thinking, surely he must be doing this in his head for the right reasons. That in the long term, whatever the long term might be, United will emerge from this. I was told when this latest round of redundancies became a news sort of story, that within 2 years they think this is going to then work, right? That seems like a reasonable time frame, but I'll tell you what, and I'm sure you probably discussed this or thought it yourself, why didn't he just come out to Jim Ratcliffe and sort of say to people, look, you know
this
what,
is
right?
the plan, this is what we're looking to do.
Yeah, I made some mistakes, doing X, Y, and Z, this is the plan. It's not great. I understand if you think I'm having a shocker here, but stick with me because I'm trying. Just something like that. Yeah,
it's transparency, isn't it? Because the PR around INEOS couldn't be worse.
Ruben Amorim has also said, Ange, that he doesn't fear for his job. Is that because is he getting too much of an easy ride, or is that because of the understanding that look at this mess? He wanted to come at the end of the season. He was told, come here now. He wasn't exactly supported in the January transfer window, really. We are, like Crookie said many times, and I agree, our squad's actually weaker after the January window has closed. And maybe that's better for the long term because you have to start initiating the exit packages because Man United can't get quick deals done. So Anthony, Marcus Rashford, Terrell Malacia, those players probably aren't going to have a future. So you have to initiate that now. But in the short term, it weakens the squad. And we didn't get any other attackers in. Is he... Do you understand why he's comfortable in his job? Because he's basically saying, listen, I'm not going anywhere now. This is going to be awful. I'm going to be here in the summer, no matter what. Yeah. And we can go from there.
I want him to be comfortable in his job because I feel like, what do you do next? You've paid all this money to get rid of Ten Hag and bring him in. What are you going to do? Keep him for half a season and then get rid because it's still not working? Who else, realistically, would you bring in? I think this is the situation with Man United is Ruben Amorim's not just having to deal with players that aren't good enough, that have got a terrible mentality, with powers that be that are new to the club and old powers that be that we all know are quite difficult. But he's creating a tactical identity, which Manchester United haven't had in a very, very long time. That should be the job of somebody like a Dan Ashworth, who he gave his opinions and they got rid of him. And I don't know, Jamie, if you know more about this, but I think about in Wilcox, what is his role? Because he was supposed to be sort of taking over from stuff like that. But I feel like Amorim is single-handedly trying to push this identity on Man United that they've not had for probably a decade. It's a big job. It's not just getting the players to play right. It's this whole thing.
We kind of nailed something there. I think that's interesting. That Ashworth is supposed to be, or was supposed to be, the executive or the person in that role, sporting director, who kind of oversees, the strategy, how the team plays. With Wilcox, technical sort of executing that, making sure that actually happens. That's the whole point of having a sporting director because, I shouldn't really have to spell this out to United, basically, to Jim Ratcliffe or whatever, but, so you don't have sort of instability in terms of the manager, and it doesn't really, and so to get rid of that person, then not officially replace him, I think you're right. I think Jason Wilcox has taken over that. But to be honest, if you ask me who the sporting director is, I'd say it's Jim Ratcliffe. If you ask me who the chief executive is, it's Jim Ratcliffe.
Yeah.
It just is. He's there all the time. He was there, let me get this right, I think he was there last Friday, for example, just at Old Trafford in a box meeting some people. That's up to him. It's his club and all the rest of it. But what I'm saying is he's there on the ground all the time. And this 3-4-3, is this going to be Manchester United's mode of play for the next 10, 15 years?
Well, Gary Neville said they look like under nines with this system. And I know that's quite eccentric. Do you think Amorim's causing problems of his own? Are you just about to go into the system?
I think it's counterproductive what's going on here. Because the reason why I sort of said that then about is this going to be the way the United play for the next 10, 15 years? If not, why is it going on now? If it is, fair enough. But if so, you've got to have a coach who is able to sort of, Sir Alex Ferguson started off with 4-4-2, then sort of played 4-5. He messed around, he tweaks when he needed to. He
basically, the best managers can adapt.
Well, yeah, for me, that should be your mode of play and adaptability. Yeah, you have a base, right? Yeah, but within that, okay, today we're going to play 4. And it shouldn't be a big deal. It's always become sort of like a massive thing. Oh, this is the system and it has to work. Otherwise, it's like, wait a minute, you're a football coach. Football's a relatively simple game. Listen, I've never played at any sort of level or coached, but I observe a lot, as I know we all do. And you don't have to really be a rocket scientist to look at. Guardiola's played 5 at the back, wing back. That's not his system, but he's done it when he had to. I think in his first season, more than any other time, but he did it because he looked at it and thought, I need to do something here. What's wrong with that?
There has been, and this is where, as fans, and this is where the conversation really, really widens, because some fans are saying, a lot of fans are saying, well, we asked Eric Ten Hag to come in with a philosophy and a style of play. He ditched those principles after basically getting destroyed against Brentford at 4-0. And we pretty much never saw what he really wanted to do again and never went back to a specific style. And the biggest criticism of Eric Ten Hag is, what Man United tried to do? They've got no style of play. They've got nothing that's identifiable. They've got nothing that you can predict before the game of this is how they're set up, this is what they're trying to do, and this is what we'll probably see. Then INEOS bring a manager like Ruben AMORIM here for that system. He's been employed by INEOS for that. Because I remember when Eric Ten Hag said, when people said, play the Ajax way, we want that, what we saw in that Champions League run. He went, can't do that, I haven't got Ajax players. Then proceeded to buy a whole load of Ajax players. So that's where we're coming from. And all the United fans, and all the scrutiny is, what on earth are you doing? What do you mean you can't play the Ajax? Apparently a lot of fans said, he lost me then. This guy's come in and said, I will give you that sport. That is what I do. And I'm not moving. If I have to weed out the crap, if I have to weed out the players who are not good, I will take the pain now until I get what I want. And then it's almost like, as fans, sometimes we're talking out of both sides of our mouth. Which one do we want? Do we just want someone who keeps changing, depending on the system, but then we go, don't change for these players. These are the same players that in 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, 4-4-2 under Eric Ten, they were awful. They were getting laughed out of the place. We lost to Bournemouth, we lost to Fulham, I remember a game against Burnley under Vincent Kompany last year. Xander Berg was having the luxury of the whole pitch. And we're going, what is this? So let's not act like, let's revert back to something that was really working. It was the worst, that was also the worst Man United team we've ever seen.
I agree with what you're saying, because I think Ruben Amorim spoke about it, didn't he? And he said, if I go back on my principles, then we're just going to later down the line, we're going to have more problems and history's going to repeat itself. So, and I'm not saying that that's... No, you know what? I am saying that it's right the way that he's doing things, because I've said it a couple of times, the mentality of these players, it makes me think that if he changes anything slightly to kind of soften things for them, they'll be like, yeah, I told you it won't going to work.
Well, actually, I'll give you another piece. Your good friend, Chris Wheeler, you know, Chris done a piece saying today that apparently, you know, the United players are becoming a little bit, we don't really like this system. Yeah,
because it's hard.
And that's met with United fans going, we've seen this before. Don't you lot dare. Ruben, stay strong. Do not give in to them.
And it's a weird kind of like power dynamic that he's also battling, and that's what I mean, in that there's so many different layers to what he's dealing with. But for me, it is, what do you want? Do you want him to change? I do think that you have to have some kind of tweaking.
Yeah,
I do think that, and I think we've said that before, of, you know, like maybe does he just, for one game, try a back four, for example, because the formation can be tweaked, but I just think the second he deviates from anything, it's just going to potentially cause more problems. And he's very aware that people have come in with a style of play, they backtrack, it doesn't work, and he's maybe thinking, I need to just keep with this.
I completely agree with you. All I would add to that is if he starts winning games, he can kind of do what he likes, you know. Then he can tweak, can't he? Because then people are like, okay, it doesn't matter.
And maybe
so that's the problem. That's what I'm sort of saying.
Yeah, maybe.
Just find a way. I don't know, just to give yourself a bit. I really want him to succeed. I always say this about each manager since Ferguson. I really thought this was the right appointment, this guy. But actually, out of all of them, and maybe it is because I'm, you know, sort of new still. He's the latest one through the door. But I do think he's the most exciting you've had since Ferguson because of his profile. You know, he's 39, 40. He's 40 now, but on the rise. Look at that Sporting team. Was at that game when they took apart City. You know, early in this season, the Champions League, where it's 4 or 5-1.
So we've seen something. Yes. You've seen what happens if you can allow him to build the system.
Exactly.
I know it's not as transparent.
Exactly.
It's not as transparent as, see, look, you did that in the Portuguese League. But allow the principles to truly be embedded into a squad. Support him, INEOS, in bringing in players. You know, like, I'm not saying Patrick Dorgu is the answer to everything, of course not, but I'm saying players of that up and coming, there's reports about Giovanni Chienda, these types of players who really fit what he wants, allow that and then judge him. What I have seen, which does happen in the United fan base, as we know, online and the hysteria, we're emotional. We say, right, get Eric Ten Hag out, and the next guy, we've got to stand by him, like, just eat, no matter how bad it gets, weed out the players. Doesn't matter if we finish 10th, 12th, you know, just get rid of them. We've seen the Leopards, as Roy Keane says, Leopards don't change their spots. But then what happens when the results comes? We don't really have the stomach for it. We're like,
Which is
I don't
understandable.
know.
Human beings. you know what I mean?
Exactly, because then we change, and then we're like, and then we lose sight. So really, what's happening is there's this up and down emotion, and which is taken away from the wider project of we have to stick with this.
And I think when you pull into that, the Sancho situation, the Rashford situation, the INEOS situation, the season ticket prices, the redundancies, when you rope all of this in together, you can understand. Yeah, it is. It's absolute chaos. You're right.
On the Spurs game, though, I actually thought, if I'm honest, you could see why it was. I think by the time we kicked off, it was 14th against 15th, wasn't it? By the time, I think it was.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Wasn't a lot in it, really. It was two poor
Garnacho
teams.
could finish.
Garnacho should have scored. We had enough chances to score at least a couple, at least get a draw out of that game.
Yeah, and this is where I do have some sort of...
It's fine margins when we do lose.
Exactly, and I have a lot of empathy for AMORIM or any coach, because he can't go into the press conference afterwards and say, well, if Garnacho could actually finish today...
No,
I mean, he can't
not going to throw him under the bus.
So he's got to take all this on, and it goes... it's just... Looking at that performance, it could have gone the other way, and because Postecoglou afterwards, I wouldn't say he was crowing, but it was almost like he'd won, the league and what he was talking about.
He's
And
so annoying.
Again, he's doing it maybe just for the public.
But it's just a big sigh of relief for them because he's
100%.
under.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, you sort of said it then about which side of the mouth do fans speak out, and it's the same to do with patience and time. Everyone thinks in football, this person needs time, Ruben AMORIM in this case, but when it actually comes to it, the time is very, very short, and that's why you hear people like him, other coaches, sort of saying, I need to win, because he buys time, obviously.
100%. He said that from the first day, didn't he?
What my stance is, I think he should have come in and said, I've got these principles, but my principles actually are 3-4-3, 100%, but within that, expect the odd bit of T-word.
That little bit of flexibility would have been nice.
Now
to
it
see,
almost feels like, as you're saying, Angelina, he's not going to be a man of principle if he does change it, which is obviously not true, but it's just he's got...
Can I ask you this, Jay, actually? We spoke about this on, I think it was last week's show, when Ryan brought it up on a show with Ali McCoist about basically the United legends not really helping. And it's actually ironic that we thrashed this out, didn't we, Ange?
Yeah.
And Gary Neville's proceeded to go on and really be really critical of AMORIM, on a personal, as a manager, rather than the whole institution, rather than INEOS, this, that and the other. Yeah. And it wound a lot of Man United fans up. I saw online saying, what good does he think that does? He didn't have the same energy when Ollie was under the bus. How do you see it in terms of legends coming out and being really scathing and saying what they see?
Listen, you've got to remember, I'm not a fan of Manchester United.
Yeah, so that's why you're a good person to ask.
Yeah, I've not got that investment. I didn't think he was overly harsh, Gary Neville. I thought what he was saying when he was identifying the midfield, the gap between Casemiro and...
Bruno.
Yeah, Bruno. And I was looking at it thinking, crumbs, he's right. I mean, there's acres there, relatively speaking, for a top-level football game. I've heard him be critical. I do think he does seem to leave... I mean, maybe he's done it on other occasions, but I was a bit surprised he wasn't then sort of saying, yeah, that's going on, but wait a minute, look at the absolute hand he's been dealt by INEOS, the club.
Interesting,
you know what I mean? Everything going on behind the scenes, with all the redundancies. I mean, there's, people feel a lot of pain there. It's like when when anyone loses their job, it's horrible. So all that's going on, I don't care who you are, what club you are. You can't win anything if it's like that. You just can't. It just can't, because
the whole culture of the environment.
It's called a club because everyone's connected. It's like a family. It sounds a bit cheesy, but it's true.
It is, especially United.
We go in there. We see these same people. They're nice people, like your friends, right?
Yeah.
We don't work with them, so it's going to have an effect if any sort of proper person. So it's very difficult. It's dysfunctional. Yeah. So, and when he said it's our responsibility, I thought, crumbs, that's really good of you to say that. Brave, but you don't have to say that. It's not your, it's not your fault people are getting sacked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know what he's getting at, but he's only just walked through the door in terms of the result.
Yeah, he's literally walked into this mess. He hasn't been complicit.
So, I mean, it's an absolute what's it of a situation for everyone.
How do you feel about it, Andrew? Gary Neville was saying, Ruben's angry. I'm not really sure who he's shouting at. He was really going in on him. Do you agree with that? Was that a fair assessment, or do you think, like what Ryan is saying, he actually has more of a point than maybe what we were discussing last week?
I think it's a fair assessment to an extent, because it wasn't a good game of football, and I was frustrated that I get that your bench is mainly small children, but try something.
Massive.
I know, yeah, true. I say that of barely 5'5".
Second credit's massive as well, but I know you mean.
But it's like, do something, because as much as people are saying, you shouldn't put these kids into such a toxic environment. You've got professional footballers with loads of experience. They've got international experience, and even they're struggling in this situation. But a lot of these kids that are now with under-21s, they won, I think, about 3 trophies with the under-18s. They've had, I think, their last 8 domestic games they've won. So these kids have got a bit more about them when it comes to, just trying to make something happen, trying to get a win, trying to create something. So I think I'm more on the side of the argument of I would feature them, and I know that AMORIM said that he would like to. So I was frustrated with the game, so I kind of got where Gary Neville was coming from. I mean, there's a lot of maybe conspiracy theories or discussions as to why Gary Neville has been so kind to Sir Jim and co. Which I have no idea, so I wouldn't comment. But I do think that if you're going to go in on the manager, I think you've got to be fair across the board, because it isn't just this man's problem. He was told, you come now or you don't go to the club. He's been put in an impossible situation.
With not much support in the January transfer window. Probably might have known that as well, but also that has to be taken into account, whether he knew or he didn't. It's like, you're not going to get money in January as well. We'll add that in as well. Okay, so I'll just keep working with this worse. Yeah, exactly. I mean, before we move on, just on INEOS then, Jamie, I mean, they're coming up, approaching a year in situ.
Feels like longer.
It does. It feels like
with this for a decade.
Feels like it does. It does feel like a decade. How have they done for you? Is it? Do you think can work well in the future? Is it just a case of they're allowed to make mistakes in the first year, they'll learn from it, or do you see this as this isn't going to work?
Listen, I think you phrased the question very fairly, because you put in a few things there which about they're allowed to make mistakes. And I think everyone is. I'm just a little bit surprised, given Ratcliffe's experience in other sports, or maybe I shouldn't be because it's not been going that great.
Great, exactly.
But I go back to the Ten Hag / Ashworth thing, and what is going on there? How can you employ a guy in Ashworth, let's say, who you haven't done your due diligence on, or if you have, it hasn't shown up that he might have strong ideas about who the manager should be, because by the way, that's his job, sporting director. Keeping Ten Hag and then letting him go. I mean, that costs a lot of money. That would have paid for maybe another Patrick Dorgu or a striker or a forward or whatever it might. You know what I mean? So if I was going to mark them out of 10, and I'm being kind, I'd give them 4. Yeah. The reason it's not a lot lower is because they've employed AMORIM, and I think they've got that one right. Yeah. But they've got to they've got to back him. And when I say that, it's about time, even if it's not money. But I don't think they've had a great first year, and it really is not last chance saloon, but these redundancies are going through. I'm being told 2 years' time. It's the phrase to me was something like, through doing this, we will have a competitive edge over elite rivals. Doing this now for this pain, basically, it has to be done, sort of thing. So let's wait and see. That's their own time frame, which I don't think is an unreasonable time frame considering the mess. But this summer, I don't know. Yeah, there'll be a bit of money, but at the moment, the cupboard is bare.
100%. That's the scary thing. Is where is this money going to come from? That's why these players aren't all going to leave in the summer. We're not going to get a whole squad overhaul. It's not going to happen. I'll take your point there, Jamie. I mean, for you, and as a United fan, fair to say we expected an awful lot more from INEOS in the first year, didn't we?
Yeah, I'd probably say similar of 4 out of 10, because as much as, like you said, Jamie, it's not great in other sports, but this whole ruthless Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I think that he's just been ruthless in the wrong areas. And I don't understand, and I'm not a financial expert, but I don't understand how these little bits and bobs of penny pinching that he's doing, how it's actually going to add up. I remember reading something about, stopping stewards getting a £50 bonus or something like that. The amount of the years, the decades it would take for that money to even have a dent in Manchester United, it's insignificant.
Versus the effect it has on the morale of the workforce.
And that's the thing that really kind of scares me about this situation, is to you're not getting anything from something like that. I think also for me, I watch a lot of women's football. They're second in the WSL. If that continues, they're going to be looking at hopefully playing Champions League football. They're still in a cup competition.
And that's not with the greatest of support from INEOS as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And, fans are talking about it. And Sir Jim Ratcliffe has not been to a game at Leigh Sports Village where they play. I think some people, I think Omar Barada might have been there or something like that. For them to be playing at a cup final at Wembley and he can't be bothered to show up, things like that for me personally sting.
Now, we're always desperate to chat to the lucky few who have donned the famous red jersey at Old Trafford. So I'm delighted to say we're now joined by former Man United and Premier League striker Fraizer Campbell. Victor, listen, good to see you, bro. I wish it was under better circumstances for our team. I really do. Listen, you've played for both United and Spurs. I mean, right now, who's the more attractive proposition? I'll start with that. Who would you rather play for now?
Yeah, like you said, both teams not living up to expectations, and it just seems like, especially with United, one bad result after the other. You look like you're turning a corner with a win or a positive performance, and then the week after you're just back to square one again, and it's getting increasingly boring.
It's not great. It really isn't. And our biggest problem, of course, is scoring goals. And as a goal scorer yourself, I wanted to ask you in particular about Rasmus Højlund and Joshua Zirkzee. There's clear deficiencies in their game. They're both young. They've got a lot to work on. If we start with Rasmus Højlund, are you seeing enough improvement from him on his own personal games, and how much of the type of tough spell that he's going through is due to the fact that chances may not be created, that the team may not play to his strengths? What sort of fundamentals do you think he needs to keep working on? What do you see when you watch him?
I think, you look at him as a player as a whole, he's got potential to do really well. He's quick, he's strong, he's enthusiastic, and he looks like he's tried to take everything on board from, the staff and the manager from the sidelines. But I think at the minute, it's difficult. Over the years, when you've got a young striker in the team, he's always had at least one or two veteran strikers in and around the changing room, that can lighten the load a little bit. They're used to the pressure. They'd be expected to score all the goals, and he can just focus on himself, his development a little bit more. But as it stands, it's him and Zirkzee as the two recognised centre forwards of the club, and both young, inexperienced in the Premier League, and there's a lot of pressure around him. So I feel sorry for him, if in all honesty. They're playing a new system for the lads, especially Højlund. He's a type of player that depends on those in and around him getting in good spots and finding his runs and being in and around the game. But these, we've got players, Garnacho and Ahmad, two great wingers that are not really playing on the wing anymore. They're having to adapt their positions. So there's a lot of adaptations in and around the squad, which is, sometimes when you got five at the back, we look really solid, we look like we're not going to concede. But then that takes away from our firepower going forward. And I don't think we've quite got the balance of being solid at the back and being able to, get forward up the pitch and get our players to their strengths in the best positions and creating problems for opposition. So we're stuck at the minute, and it's, like I said, we take one step forward and it seems like we take two steps back.
Yeah, absolutely. And just with Zirkzee, do you see him as a 9? I mean, he was brought in as a striker, clearly not a high-volume goal scorer, but you see that game against Spurs when he sort of played in the right 10. It looked to me like you're starting to see something from him just off the front, driving with the ball, taking a nice touch, linking the play, making the ball stick, which has been a struggle. But what do you think his best position is, Joshua Zirkzee?
I think he said it himself. He's like a 9.5, and he's like a 10.
9.5. That's what. That's what it's got to in modern day football. Was it 9.5 when you was playing 9.5?
Nah, there was a big man and a little man. The big man and the little one ran around him. But games, it's different now. But like I said, he has shown glimpses of what he's about. He's big lad, strong lad. He holds the ball up well, and he's quite tidy with his feet. But like I said, when you're a team full of, no one's got massive amounts of confidence, results are not going for you. I think going to Man United and actually putting that shirt on and feeling expectation of the fans, feeling expectations of the media is a whole different ballgame to, looking from the outside. So they'll be feeling it. But like I said, the young lads, ideally they could have done with someone to lean on and, help them, give them some guidance, but they don't have it in the squad, so they're having to fend for themselves. And hopefully it turns out all right for them, because like I said, they're both talented young footballers, but I don't think we're seeing the best out of them because everyone around them, they're not feeling the best. And there's always stuff going on at Man United, and it's like I said before, it's really tiring to read different stories about not just the stuff going on the pitch, but all the stuff in the background.
Fraizer, you mentioned there about how players are having to change, their positions. You've got Ahmad, who was a winger, who's now, he's a left wing back at times, right wing back, sorry. Do you, in your experience, have you ever been in situations where you've had to play in a different formation or a different style? Has it been tough? Do you think that we need to give these players a bit more grace for how much they need to adapt? Or do you look at it and kind of think, well, it shouldn't actually be this difficult to switch things up?
It is difficult. If you're an out-and-out striker, I played right wing, I played left wing, I played up front, and I even once played centre mid, which was a bit of a shock to the Neil Warnock must have seen something in me that I didn't think he had. But yeah, it is difficult. But if your team's doing well and the manager asks you to drop into a position that's not yours, it makes a world of a difference. But when the team's struggling, maybe if you're struggling with confidence, your performance is not being as high as you'd like them, and then you're getting asked to play out of position in a team that's not doing well, it can be really tough. It can be really tough, but you've got to hope the leaders in the dressing room, the change room, keep you on track, and everyone sticks together and tries to drag each other through like terrible performances or bad times. But it does take effect on you if you're playing out of position and it's not going great.
Fraizer, for yourself, I know you spent time around the Manchester United first team, in particular when you was a teenager, with some stellar names. You're talking Ronaldo, Rooney, Tevez, etc. But just a few decent players along the way. But you look at the United's bench at the moment against Spurs with a lot of teenagers on there. What sort of feelings do you think they would have, considering United are a poor team right now? How apprehensive would they be? How nervous would they be? Would they just be dying to get on and just try and make an impact because the team's so poor they see an opportunity? Or do you think they're like, I don't know if I'm up for this, to be thrown in the deep end in such a tough environment?
No, I think you touched on it a little bit before. The 18s have won literally everything they were involved in last season. And I remember the first time I got called to sit on the bench, I couldn't care less if it was 12-0. That's the moment you've worked.
Like you just can't believe it that you're there, yeah.
And yeah, you've worked really hard. You've tirelessly to get to that point. So I had mixed feelings about the bench. I looked at the bench and I just thought, if it's not going well, where we're looking to. But then on the other side of that is them 8 kids that were on the bench, they've got absolutely nothing to lose. They've got no fear. They're on the back of successful seasons and they're getting a chance to do something they've always dreamed of. And they must have the ability. They've done well to be selected on the bench. So give them a chance, and not just a couple minutes. You do that when you're winning 6-0 just to give them a little run out, but give them a chance to affect the game. We always say, the kids are fearless. They come on. They don't fear anyone. They don't feel the gravity of the situation of the club. They're just there. They're making the debut for the boyhood club or whatever, and they want to go out and impress. So it's really good to see. It's always great to see, obviously, especially being an ex-academy graduate, that there's still kids coming through, and hopefully you get your next Marcus Rashford, Kobe Mainoo, and all these guys in one of them players. But they need to be given a chance, and I think the way it is at the minute with all the injuries and the bad form, I don't think you've got anything to lose by giving some of these youngsters a chance.
Speaking of a chance then, Chido Obi, he's been talked about a lot since arriving from Arsenal. You look at under 18 level, I mean, it's goals galore, over 30 goals last year in less games. Brought in now to the first team, did get off the bench, yes, albeit for 3 minutes, I think we all agree, not long enough. Next game against Everton, Goodison Park. Should he be given a chance? Maybe not to start, I don't know, but should we now be looking at, we're not scoring goals anyway, give this kid in particular a chance? And what have you made of him and how excited are you by him?
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk of him. Like you said, a lot of goal scoring. I think at the minute United seem to be attracting a lot of youngsters from around the country to come play there, which is, it's great from the history of the club. That's what they've always done. But there's no point in having the academy if you're not going to give these players the opportunities and the chances. And like you said, we're not scoring many goals, and he can score goals. So it'd be, for me, I'd love to see him get half an hour or something like that in the game, just to show what he's about, just something different. The opposition probably won't know a great deal about him. He'll be enthusiastic, and you know, he might give us that extra spark that we need to win something, to win a game of football. But yeah, it's always exciting to see youngsters coming through. But hopefully he gets a chance and can make a difference.
Fraizer, listen, thank you very much for joining us, man. We really, really appreciate it. And hopefully we get you in the studio very, very soon as well, and you can come and chop it up with us as well.
Listen, I've just been playing with dolls for the last 2 hours. It's half time, so can't wait.
We'll give it an excuse to get out of that then. We'll give it an excuse to get out of that. See you soon, mate. See you soon.
Well, thank you.
Now, Ruben Amorim's squad will have to quickly dust themselves down after a tough trip to North London, as there's another huge game on the horizon as United travel to Goodison Park this Saturday lunchtime. Massive game, the last game against Manchester United at Goodison Park before they close the stadium down and go to their new stadium. David Moyes has been absolutely smashing it. They're scoring goals. They haven't lost since he's got there. They run hard, they work hard, and we'll definitely get a result.
Yeah.
Won't we? We'll be fine.
Yeah. No, it's just written, isn't it?
It is.
David Moyes, and you can see it happening. You can literally see it. I was lucky enough to be in Merseyside last Wednesday for the final Merseyside derby at Everton at Goodison Park. Spoke to a lot of Everton fans actually, and getting that feel for, you know, how much this season means of these games at this stadium, how iconic this stadium is. And I think you're going to have a perfect storm of that. David Moyes wanting to get one over on Man United. Man United being so poor and unable to score. Everton suddenly have decided that they want to score goals. It just fills me with dread.
I mean, Jamie, if you look at the two clubs, are Everton in a better position than Man? I don't mean league table. I mean, they've just got new owners, just got a new manager. There's a bounce, new stadium's just there. All of a sudden, because Evertonians have been in the mud for a while.
They have.
And they've just wanted this type of feeling. It looks like they're getting it. Meanwhile, look at us.
And this is why I hate to mention the R word, but if you go there, United go there and lose, which they may well do, as Ange basically says, and, you know, and the sort of gap to the relegation zone drops from the 12 points it is now. You know, for me, I think once you get to 9, but definitely 6 points above that, you start to think, well, they're dicing with it. And once that happened, that's a whole other thing that hasn't been factored into. Exactly, it hasn't been factored into all the issues we're talking about on and off the. You know what I'm trying to say? I don't want to be doom and gloom. My son is a United fan, as I always like to say, because I don't want to come across as anti-United. But I'm just, you know, I'm looking at this game. That crowd is a proper football crowd, as it should be. Do you know what I mean? I've been there enough times, you know, to know what, you know, they love football, the rest of it. So, I think you said earlier, a draw would be amazing. I mean, you know, it would be amazing. You know, I mean, obviously United should be going there looking to win, and he will say that. But I tell you what, I shouldn't say this, mate, but even if they just lose 2-0, it'll be like, well, okay, it wasn't a battering, because I could see that. I think they've got a battering coming to them because of all these things that are occurring. I just think it's going to get quite a lot worse before it gets better, and I don't take any pleasure sort of doing that. Just sort of a little bit of the sense I've built up over 20 years doing this job. You know, I've sort of seen these sort of situations.
I see what you're saying, Jay. I'll be honest, like, as a fan, like, I think I said on my review after last, like, God help us at Goodison. Like, you saw what they were doing against Liverpool. Of course, that's because it's a derby. But let's be honest, Man United coming there is
it's a derby
fairly similar, is it?
Yeah.
Scousers and United and Manchester is that's just what it is. Even if it's the blue half. Yeah, exactly. They will be up for it. I think they've got like 6 cup finals left at Goodison, like I said, before they move to the new stadium. And I look at us and I don't know if Everton decide to work as intensely as they did against Liverpool, I have no idea how we match that.
Which they will under Moyes.
100%.
You know what I mean?
So just off of that alone, just the sheer intensity, forget quality, forget mindset, forget confidence. I'm just talking about working hard. I don't know how we match that. Well, beating Manchester United, actually, for David Moyes, he's beaten us in his last 2 home games of West Ham, a 1 and 2-0 respectively. And those games are really poor. I think David De Gea threw one in the net once, and then the one this year, Kobbie Mainoo gave the ball away for the second, and then something happened for the first. Someone dinked it over, Paqueta dinked it over Bowen, easy goal, because I was at both of those games. So we don't travel well to them, but He also beat Manchester United when he was at Everton in his last time he played them, which was in 2012 with a 1-0 win at Goodison Park as well. So
any goal, I think.
Yes, he's probably. Yeah. Then he went on to buy him. So he will be relishing this, and I think actually for David Moyes, it's less, because of the type of man he is, it's less about, I can really get one over. And I just think he's so ingrained in doing really well at Everton now and stabilising them, and they're on such a good run. I mean, even against Palace as well. Like, Palace had the chances to win that game, really. Everton probably lucky to get a win, but there's a resiliency about them. Look at Beto. Beto was laughed at, one of the worst strikers in the league. Now that's Højlund being laughed at as one of the worst strikers in the league.
So as you're saying this, I'm thinking, I'm sorry to say this, but why has AMORIM not had the similar sort of effect going into United as Moyes has? You know, because I actually made a joke saying that they got rid of sort of Sean Dyche as the sort of son of Moyes, right? And employed the father of Dyche, you know, Moyes. You know what I mean? And it's going to be the same sort of like dirge, but it hasn't been. Shows what I know, which is close to zero. So why can't AMORIM do that? You've got to admire Moyes. He's got to talk about resilience. What you just said about his teams, that's because he's like that. You know, he's had to go through the whole mill of the humiliation at United, getting bombed out of there, going to Spain, it not working. So listen, sport is beautiful. We all love it because you never know. And I'm unbelievably optimistic. I'm going to say they're going to win. United.
Oh my God.
2-1.
Wow. I mean, to be fair, we haven't got to predictions yet, but that's good to know that your prediction is that. I mean, only Leicester and Southampton have lost more games than Man United. This year. And I think Spurs, our producers in there saying that Spurs could be up there as well. I think they've lost quite a lot. I think they might have lost more than United. But anyway, it's since December the 4th, that is, sorry. But
okay.
So that makes sense. So it's really bad form, relegation form, obviously. From the team, man, what more can Ruben do in terms of personnel selection? I mean, how important could someone like Casemiro be, considering he's been surpassed?
Oh, he's decided he's staying now.
And he said, I'm not going anywhere. You know, Wolf of Wall Street, I'm not leaving.
Carrington. Yeah. He's like, I've got a good life. I'm getting paid X amount of money.
Also said he's played his best football here, mate. His first season here, mate. That's his best version of Casemiro.
You know what?
Which was a good season.
I'm almost not even mad at him. I get it. It's like, stay there, collect your check. Your family's happy. Good for you. I just think it's the goal scoring. I mean, I was reading, I think Rasmus Højlund and Joshua Zirkzee have scored 5 goals between 45 Premier League appearances between them. That is not good enough. Even someone like Alejandro Garnacho, and I know Ryan's going to be like not happy with me when I say this, but he's the worst finisher of what Opta defines as big chances in the Premier League this season.
So his conversion rate's not
the worst.
Not good.
Calvert-Lewin is slightly better. Gvardiol is better. He doesn't even play in that position. When you look at his XG, it's the second worst XG conversion behind Calvert-Lewin. So he's not.
Why we're in this position. We're having to rely on that player.
3 Premier League goals off an XG of 7.47 for Garnacho. The decision making, there's a lot of things that he does well. And I understand why people were worried about us losing him, especially now that we've got injuries. But when you've got 3 players there, 3 young players that are just nowhere near it, they're miles off it. And Garnacho, for me, really has to step up to the plate in this game, because how many games have we seen where his final ball, the decision-making is abysmal?
Well, we've seen that there's been games where Garnacho's come off the bench and really changed the game. And I feel like...
He's got it in his locker.
But I also feel like that's what he should be for Man United. Realistically, the bigger problem is that Manchester United have put a player like Garnacho into a position where, I mean, this time last year we were going, God, this kid's played like 30-odd games on the bounce here. Yeah. No help from Antony, what's happened with him. No help from Sancho, he's gone. No help from Rashford. So we've put him in a position where he's had to play too intensely. Now, I know if you're good enough for old enough and the scrutiny remains, because you play for Man United. And it's not like he hasn't had the chance. I 100% agree with you. But he ain't that guy yet.
Yeah.
It's that simple. He's not good enough to be relied upon at that level. Neither's Joshua Zirkzee, and that is the problem. If Bruno doesn't do anything, Ahmad, who's sitting behind you now, we've cursed him. We've put him up there. We only just let you know, Jay, we said we're going to change the player behind Crook and Normie City. It was Rashford, no longer here. We all voted Ahmad out for the rest of the season instantly. So we've cursed him. So unless it's those two, and then Bruno we have to run, who have we got?
I think for me, I said it. I wish that we'd have seen a few more of those players that were on the bench be featured against.
Do you think you will this time now? Because depending on how the week goes, if players aren't back yet and it's a relatively similar bench.
Potentially. I mean, I think Chido Martin. I think give him a chance. There's a reason why Man United got him from Arsenal and are paying him quite a lot of money considering how young he is. Arsenal fans were even looking, saying this is the one that got away. We needed him. So I think, what have you got to lose?
Yeah.
So that is one player that I'd like to see.
Can I just add this in, because I should have done earlier. What we're talking about here is basically down to the Glazers, right? The debt is 750 million or something like that. The servicing that is 20 million a year, right? Just to service it alone. I mean, come on. And what we're seeing now is a complete and utter disintegration of management of this club. Since 2005, since when he came in, Malcolm Glazer, it's now 20 years, right? It is 20 years. And this is a perfect storm of everything that might have happened maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Or, I was watching the Solskjaer teams or the Mourinho teams and thinking, God, they've done all right there. Sure, this is going to fall off a little bit at some point, just because of the gradual but definite decline. And that's what's going on here. And so to go back to INEOS, they've had a bad year, but it's not their fault.
No, they've walked into
it just isn't.
No, they haven't made things better in the time they've been here. But at the same time, they have responsibility if they're going to go in there and do the right thing. I get that. But as I'm listening to you talking about these, Garnacho, once again, it's sort of bringing home to me what a complete mess it is. It's actually difficult. So maybe only in about 10 years' time, you look back and think, crumbs, that actually happened at Manchester United. And this is why, when you're talking about Ruben Amorim, before we wrap up, it's like, well, look what he's walking. This is a common theme.
Yeah.
The guy before him, the guy before him, the guy before him, the guy before him, all couldn't get it right. And it's been a total mess. Right, let's lock in the predictions. You did say
2-1 to United.
2-1 United.
And a hearty 2-1.
I like it, Jay. I like it. But I don't know if I can get behind it, but I like it.
I hate doing this. Right, so if we're going off what I said that I want Chido Martin to play, I am just going to be so delusional here and just think that he's going to take to it like a duck to water. Wow. He's going to be absolutely fantastic. Wow. Hopefully, maybe we'll have 1 or 2 names that were out. Yeah. Well, those are the kind of score lines that he's used to. So maybe 10-0 that Everton will score. And yeah. But I'm going to go. Oh, no, I don't think that...
Oh, no, she's backtracking already.
I'm sorry.
I've got pressure here.
I'm going to go 2-1 as well. I'm going to go 2-1 as well. I'm going to go 2-1 as well. Because Everton will score.
Is that on the record, yeah?
On the record,
yeah. You don't keep clean sheets.
People laughed at me when I said we'd beat Arsenal on penalties, and we did. So, I'm going with it.
OK, unfortunately, I'm doing my pure realist, like how I really feel. Not trying to do maybe... I can't see how we win this game.
I thought you were a fan.
Yeah,
I am.
He does
I'm just being like, I do. Yeah, I predict losses all the time. If I generally, because I'm done with that. I used to do that all the time of like, but I feel like, but you know what? I'll go with it. No, like we have to live in what this really is. Yeah. And I just think we'll get outrun. I think we'll get outfought, and I just think we'll be wasteful. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm coming in next Tuesday going, wow, couldn't see that coming, but I'm going with 2-0 United loss. I really do hope I'm wrong. Guys, thank you for staying with us. Big thank you to Jamie for making his in-studio debut, and of course, talkSPORT's Angelina Kelly, and of course, Fraizer Campbell. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Inside Devils. Hopefully, we'll see you next week after another 3 points is in the bag, and we're that closer to staying up.